I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to make it. We're live. Oh my goodness sakes, we're live. All right. Let me hit record and we'll start off this fine edition of the Missouri Liberty Report podcast, shall we? Let's All right, folks, and we're back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks again for joining me this week. So I've got Casey Pemberton back on. If you remember him from several months back, he ran for state rep and had him on, talked about all things Liberty, and wanted to have him back on to discuss some topics. And we want to pick his brain on campaigning, what the lessons he learned, and maybe for those of you out there in the listening audience that maybe ever want to take a stab at running for, alderman, mayor, state rep, or whatever, maybe Casey can give you some good, helpful tips on things that he saw, lessons that he learned along the way. So, Casey, good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing well. And yourself, sir?
Oh, I'm living the dream. That's all I'm going to say, living the dream. So, Casey, I guess let's just get right into it. Well, actually, you know what? For those of you out there, for those people who don't know who Casey is, Casey, give us a little background on yourself, and then we'll just jump right into things.
All right. My name's Casey Pemberton. Like you mentioned before, I ran for state rep in District 58. Did not win. Was going up against the incumbent Willard Haley. He ended up winning, but I still took 28% of the vote my first time running, so I'm not too upset about that. And I've been working as a legislative aide.
Okay. So before we get into the topic that I told you I wanted to talk about first, let's get into your campaign. And are there some kind of run us through the process that you went through, and maybe into some helpful tips for those folks who may run, like I said, for alderman, mayor, some local government seat, or maybe a state rep or state senator. Just describe the process that you went through, and then some of the things that you learned along the way.
Yeah. So basically, the big process is filing. Make sure you do all that on time. Make sure you have so you got to start your bank account if you're going to spend over $500. Trust me, if you're running for state rep, you're probably going to spend over $500. So then you start your campaign account. You're going to need yourself a treasurer, and I have a deputy treasurer too. And you can be your own treasurer. And then it's just making sure you file on time and making sure that you follow all the ethics laws and you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Other than that, some helpful tips. Knocking doors, even in today with social media, with everything, that would be the biggest tip I can give you is knock doors. It really makes a difference to a lot of people who, when they see you at their door, it's how I won most of the votes that I got. I would be fairly certain is I knocked on their door, I said hello, and I want to be your state rep. Other than that, going to city council meetings, I'm sure you've seen your state reps every time since you've been known who they were, John. They're always at the fair and everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those are great. Go to your city council meetings.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I've been to a few city council meetings. Now, there here in Owensville, there's just not a lot of people that go to the meetings for the most part. It really depends on the topic. Now, when we were discussing food trucks and there were a lot more people involved, but if it's this normal bi-weekly meeting, then you don't see as many people there for the most part unless there's going to be again some hot topic. But
Yeah,
I can still see your point. If people know that you're going to be there, then that might draw people to the meeting, because even if you're not going to speak in front of the city alderman or whatever, it does give people the opportunity to meet you and talk to you before and after the meeting. So yeah, I get that.
yeah, and even give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
No
Yeah,
problem.
even if you don't get a big group to come out for that, I think it impresses a lot of people who are there to know that you're running for state rep and you're showing that you really care. And I think to one of Morton Blackwell, awesome guy, did Ronald Reagan's youth campaign, was really instrumental in that. Uh, Started up Leadership Institute, which would be another thing I would recommend to anyone who wants to run for office. If you can, find a time to go to a Leadership Institute class. They are great. Um, but so one of his points of public policy is no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I know it's a used up saying, but it's true. Once people know that, oh, he's serious, he wants to help, he wants to know what's going on in the community, that inspires a lot more of them to look at you as a serious person.
Yeah.
Beyond that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I would say, yeah, I see your point on that as well.
Yeah, beyond that, the hardest thing for me, and I think what really helped me back a lot, was fundraising. Um, you know, I told everybody pretty much who I asked for money. This is weird to me. I've worked for quite a bit since I was 18 and tried to always have a job, and just asking for money is weird. But it's something you got to do unless you're independently wealthy.
Right. Yeah. You're not the first candidate that said that to me either. That, they wanted to try to do it themselves as much as possible, but it came down to a point, especially getting close to crunch time, that they go, oh boy, I've got to ask for money. I know Robert, when I had him on closer to yeah, I don't remember if it was the primary or was the actual election time in 2020. He told me before. He said, "Hey man, just a heads up, I'm going to ask for money." And then we got on and started talking about topics, and he completely forgot to discuss any fundraising, and that's fine. I didn't go, "Hey, dude," afterwards, like, hey, silly, you forgot to ask for money. That was his thing to do, and I wasn't gonna tell him what to do. But yeah, it was just kind of funny. We just started talking and completely forgot about the whole fundraising thing. It was pretty hilarious. So let me ask you this: when you were door knocking, and you said you're pretty sure that's a big reason why you got a lot of the votes. Does Were you able to talk to people that might have been voting for your opponent and pull them your way when they figured out that, hey, this guy really wants us to be free and really wants to work for things that will make us more free than maybe the other guy will? Did you hear people saying, well, I was going to vote for this guy, but now I'm going to vote for you? Did you hear those things from some of the?
There were a couple. Yeah, there were a couple of them. So there's one guy who I don't know how much he'd want me to disclose. So just in case you have any listeners you have a few listeners in my area, so it's going to be as vague as I can. There was one guy. It wasn't a door knock, but it was the city council meeting. He came up to me at the fair after the election and said that, hey, uh, you know, I want you to know, going to that city council meeting Monday instead of being at the fair, you at least won over 2 votes. It was him and his wife. We had a conversation after, and he asked me why I went, and I told him it was because, well, I want to be the rep, and if I'm the rep, I have to know what's going on in the city. And he was impressed by that. And I heard a lot of that when I was door knocking too, and I told people I'm trying to go to city council meetings, I'm trying to go to veterans meetings, just because I want to talk to the people. The fair breakfast, one guy commented and laughed, and he goes, "Hey, you're not at the politician table." My response was, I've talked to those guys enough.
I've had about enough of them. I want to be over here with the normal people, not the politician people.
Exactly. And it might be a cheesy sentiment, but really, it is a thing that happens where, and it's not inherently their fault, people group up in general with people who they know better. And if you're a politician and you're around all these other guys who are going to all the political events, those are the people you're going to know better.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be drawn into that. But that was another thing I'd recommend is go be with the people. Yeah, the politicians might have some of the bigger money guys around, and those are nice. But they still only are one vote at the end of the day.
That is true.
But yeah, so fundraise, knock like your life depends on it. If you have a free second and you can, go out door knocking. If you're not door knocking, get on phone. If you're not doing that, find a place to put a sign. Just always remember, the other guy has problems too, and he also has victories too. Like, neither one of those are exclusive to you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that being said, and this doesn't have anything to do with Casey. I just I want to put this out there before I forget. So someone has approached me coming in the next couple months about sponsoring one podcast with an advertisement for a business that they're starting up. I'm not going to mention any name or company name right now because we've got things. We're waiting closer for them to launch, and then they're going to sponsor one ad. Now, I want to say this because you're going to hear it, and that's not something that you normally hear on my podcast. Now, I have gone out and I've mentioned companies that maybe you should take a look at, but that was free advertising. I did it because it seemed like they had great customer service and they were willing to work with people and do just about anything for them that they could. But I have somebody asking me for a sponsorship for one podcast, and I told them, okay, that's fine. You write up kind of the points you want me to make about your product and your company, and I'll do a little writing, and we'll see what we can come up with, and I'll do, one episode. Now, I'm not saying that I'm out there looking for advertisements and, people to support the podcast monetarily. I will say this. If anybody out there within the sound of my voice says, "Oh, I want to sponsor John's podcast," I don't know if I would do it a lot. It gets iffy because of the simple fact that some people will want to try to control the things you say, or they'll be like, "I didn't like what you said that week. I'm yanking." I'm yanking my support, and I really don't want to play that game. So be aware. If you want to sponsor an episode of this podcast at any point, I will have some kind of contract or something to sign that says, just because you're sponsoring an ad does not mean that you have the ability to control what I say. Now, I don't get on here and try to be controversial and be, edgy. I just come out here and talk about topics and give my point of view and some facts that I've read up on or seen or whatever. But if I do this for you, please be aware that I am not going to sit here and not talk about a certain subject because you don't want me to. If that's the way you feel, then don't waste my time and don't waste your time wanting to sponsor an episode. I'm just putting that out there. But yeah, be looking for that. I have somebody who listened to me for a long time messaged me the other night and asked me about a sponsorship for one episode for their startup company, and I said, sure. Now we got to work out a price, which won't be a lot because I'm not doing this to monetize it and make a boatload of money. I'm doing this because I like freedom. But I do appreciate that someone wants me to, talk about their new company. So, that's a trade-off. I get a little money, and they get some advertising. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out there because around October, sometime you're going to hear that and go, well, he doesn't normally do that. That's the reason why. But I know this guy is not going to say, hey, I don't want you to talk about this, this, or this. I only want you to talk about this. That's not how it's going to go down. So, with that being said, we can continue on. So, Casey, I want to get into the one topic that I really wanted to cover tonight was Legal Missouri 22, which is the ballot initiative for the legalization of recreational marijuana. Now, I know Casey just told me he got in contact with Ethan Thampy, who is really, really up to par with his knowledge on his subject, and I'm going to try to have him on in the next couple of weeks to discuss this, more thoroughly. But I'm telling you, folks, anybody out there, I know there are some of my listeners that want marijuana legalized, and I'm telling you right now, Legal Missouri 22 is not it. Because if you go to the website, it says automatic expungement. That's a lie. It's not expungement for everybody. It's not expungement for all nonviolent offenders. Some people are going to have to serve out their term. Then when they get out, they can ask for expungement. But it's not expungement across the board for nonviolent offenders. That's not the way it is. That's the first lie. Then they talk about all the taxes, the local sales tax, and then they talk about state officials project additional annual revenue of at least $40.8 million and additional local government revenues of at least $13.8 million. Now, here's the other thing. It says seeks to broaden industry participation by small business owners and among disadvantaged populations, including those with limited capital, residents of high-poverty communities, service-disabled veterans, and those previously convicted of nonviolent marijuana offenses. But all new license holders will be selected at random by lottery.
Yeah, and that's the biggest lie that they have going on with that.
Yeah, and then also where they say that it says extends the amount of time that medical marijuana patient and caregiver ID cards are valid from 1 to 3 years while keeping that cost low, $25, and the current $100 fee for Missourians who choose to grow it at home will be reduced by half, with the expiration period also extended from 1 to 3 years. Now, here, what Casey just said about the lottery, that's a big one. The other big one is you still have to have a license. With Representative Hicks' bill that he had, there would be no licensing. If you wanted to grow, that's it. No license. There was Department of Health and Human Services. Nobody would be showing up at your door randomly to check your licenses. All that was going to go bye-bye. What this has done has ensured that the big boys get to win and keep their money, and the little people are still going to have a heck of a time starting up a dispensary or whatever. That's the thing they're not telling you. If you read the language, this is for, if you want to call them the monopolies in this thing, it's to protect them. It's to protect them. It's not to protect the poor or whatever. It's a bill to protect the people, the big businesses that already have their dispensaries in Missouri. And again, I don't like licensure. I've talked about this many times. I hate licensure. And if they're going to legalize it, why should you have to have a license to grow it? That's not legalized.
And a big thing with this, too, it just in general, it doesn't want a free market. That was a big thing for Representative Hicks' bill. He wanted to give it a free market approach. Beyond that, it's putting it in the Constitution. A lot of people don't think about that. Nothing, you know, a lot of people I've talked to, one of their thoughts is, well, at least we legalize it and then we can fix it in the legislature later. Technically, but it becomes a much bigger pain in the butt to fix later if you go this route.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead. I'm
If you
sorry.
have if you have a bad bill that starts out in statute, you can fix that fairly easily in the legislature. You know, you got to get it through the process, but you only got to go through the one process to fix statute. You get a bad bill in the Constitution, bad amendment, sorry, then you have so much more you have to go through to fix it. You're either going to have to go through a petition process, the resolution process, and either way, you're going to have it voted on by the people of Missouri, and you're going to have to explain to them why you want to fix it, and it's going to be millions of dollars just in advertising to fix it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that they're not talking about is how many people they paid to sit outside of dispensaries to get the signatures needed for this ballot initiative. They paid a lot of people, and some people admitted to it that they were paid by whatever organization. I don't know. I don't quite know the organization that's heading it up. They admit, yeah, I'm getting paid, and I can't remember the gal's name that I interviewed. Back in April, I think. That she was saying that. We were talking about the differences between Ron Hicks' bill and this legal Missouri 2022. And Ganai brings up a good point. In Ron Hicks's bill, it kind of would have. Now you would have had to answer the question. Are you a medical marijuana card holder? The important fact is, the feds couldn't have done anything about that. You still could have owned firearms. That was another important distinction between. There's nothing about firearms ownership in this legal Missouri 2022. That's been left out. Ron Hicks' bill took care of that. But again, because our House floor leader is kind of a jerk, he decided to just let it sit there and die on the calendar. It never moved out. It got through committee, but then it just died after that. And so they want this legal Missouri 2022. They want to amend the Constitution. And like you said, Casey, really, really bad idea. Just a really awful idea at this time. As imperfect as this is, we can do better. We can do way better. And I think what we need to do is vote this down and then do some work again in the upcoming legislative sessions. Take a bill like Mr. Hicks, Representative Hicks had, and try again. And just build up the pressure on our reps in the House to get it on the floor and get it voted into this and get it to the Senate and not let it die on a calendar somewhere.
And I think the most important part of that is we're going to be seeing some more liberty legislators that have gotten in or are close to getting in. And I think you're going to see them be willing to go to bat on this and work on it. I think you could very well see the same bill come up next year. I can't guarantee it'll get on the floor, but I can say that, it'll give us another shot. You can never guarantee anything in politics, but at the very least, it gives us another chance to try and go for a free market rather than this approach that we then have to try and amend the Constitution for again if we want to fix it. Yeah. And, I mean, to just look at how ridiculous even these amendments get, think about it, guys. Bingo is in the Constitution, and when we amended it for bingo, we didn't amend it to take bingo out of the Constitution. We amended it just to make it so you had to be a member of a group a little bit less time in order to help them out at their bingo hall.
Yeah,
So these amendments don't go anywhere half the time to be fixed.
right. And again, talking about SEPA. SEPA took 8 years. Let's not get so hung up on the fact that we want to legalize it that we just compromise and take a crap, constitutional amendment. Let's do it right. Let's be patient. Do it right. We'll get there. But let's do what we did, like we did with SEPA, or I shouldn't say we, because I didn't. Okay, but like they did with SEPA, they busted their butt. They made a boatload of phone calls. They finally got enough pressure on the House to get that sucker through, and then over to the Senate. And same thing, apply pressure. That's what we have to do here. We have to be patient, perfect the bill, and then put the pressure on. We've proven we can do it. SEPA, they proved they could do it with SEPA. We can do it with the medical marijuana legalization. We just have to have the intestinal fortitude to do it the right way and not just cave in and go, well, at least, like you're saying, at least it's legal. That's not the way to do this. This is how we end up losing all the time because we go, well, at least we got it somewhat done. Let's not do somewhat. Let's go full tilt here. Let's go full send. I'm sick and tired of this compromising with state reps or some of these big industries to give us kind of what we want. No, if we want something, let's go all the way in. Let's go all in and get it done the right way, like they did with SEPA. That'd be my take on this because, if we're going to expunge records of nonviolent offenders, then you do it for all of them. Don't sit there and pick and choose who you're going to let out and then say, oh, you still got 6 years. Well, tough crap. You're going to serve your 6 years. Then you can get out. Then you can pay a fee, and then you can fill out a form, and maybe it'll get expunged. That's not what they're saying on this site. They're not saying this at all. They're lying to people. So anybody out there within the sound of my voice that's hearing this right now, somebody that's going to vote for this, make sure you educate everyone around you who would vote yes on this ballot initiative. Ask them to vote no. Ask them to vote no. Now, I've seen some state reps and stuff come out against this and say this is not the right way to do this. We need to do better than this. We can do better than this. So there are some state reps that are out there talking about this and trying to educate their constituents, and I hope we can do the same thing. Let's see. Catherine Dreyer's here. She says, the question is, how can we mobilize against this ballot measure? What PACs or organizations will put up money to put out propaganda and educate against it? That is a good question, Catherine.
I don't have, and I can tell, I don't have an answer on that PAC-wise. The biggest thing I know to do is, and I know it's been effective for candidates, I think it can be effective for these too. Invite your friends over. If you can, there's a lot of information going around online. Just invite them over to talk about it for a night or having a barbecue. I think one of the biggest, just general, one of our biggest mistakes we make is people don't like to talk politics anymore among friends. Friends are more effective than an advertisement on television. If my friend tells me something, I'm probably going to listen, and I know where they stand on a lot of things. I'll probably listen to them a lot better than I will listening to an advertisement or hearing it on the radio. And it won't hit everybody, but I think especially in the general listening area on the radio, friends will be a lot more effective than just advertisements.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and maybe we just have to get down to, where we sit at the Walmarts, we sit at things like, at the stores, the big box stores or whatever, set up a table and just pass out information to people as they walk in. Say, hey, I know, I don't know if you're aware of this bill. This is not the right way to go about it. Even bring up Ron Hicks's bill. Hey, they had something better and they refused to do it this way. If you see this on the ballot in November, please vote no. We're asking you to vote no and educate them. I don't know what other way to do it because here's the problem with marijuana, and this isn't necessary. Well, it kind of is. A lot of conservatives don't want to touch this issue. They want nothing to do with it. Now, there are a lot of there are several Democrats that are behind this. There's a lot of conservatives that want nothing to do with saying they would like to legalize recreational marijuana because how many of the, I mean, besides Robert, Catherine, and I think, well, Brandon Wilkinson, I think Dustin Hill maybe. But a lot of the other ones, a lot of the other so-called conservatives that I interviewed, they didn't want legalize recreational marijuana. Now, the thing they keep pointing to is look at Colorado. I don't know what they're talking about. I need to look into this because they're making it sound like Colorado is just some awful place to be now because of marijuana. And I mean, now I don't know, but that's what a lot of them pointing. We don't want to be like Colorado. Okay, what's going on in Colorado where legalizing recreational marijuana has suddenly turned that state into a dumpster fire? I mean, I don't think it's turned into a San Francisco, California type thing, has it? Because I would think you'd hear that somewhere.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's say Colorado didn't do it right. That's great. They did it. Let's learn from them and do better.
Now you're talking weird talk now, Casey. Do better. What? Do better? Yeah, I know what you're saying, but you know, when you're talking to some of these reps, it's like, you know, I'd have a better, I'd do better talking to the door.
That's just people in general, man. No one thinks you can do better than the person who did it first. We got to do it how they. If we do it, it's going to do it like they did. Well, no. Just because they did it first doesn't mean that's the only way to do it.
Yeah,
you can do it. You can do better than what they did.
Yeah, that's a lesson that we've got to learn. I mean, and this is kind of the reverse of SEPA, right? They got SEPA through, got it signed into law, and a lot of other states are like, we have SEPA, and it's like you could have tried to make it better than ours, and you actually went worse. I wouldn't brag about that. You got a SEPA without teeth. That's nothing to brag about. I hate to burst your bubble there, but so yeah, we could do the opposite. We could say, well, they did this, so let's make it this way. Will this make you happy? Of course. Now, that's without adding licenses and, you know, random freaking visits from the Department of Health and Human Services and all this other crap. We'll leave that all out of there. And I don't want a lottery drawing because, listen, after the debacle of medical marijuana, what they pulled with that testing system that they had, the awful results where they're having to spend millions of dollars because of the appeals. I mean, let's not do that kind of stupid again with the lottery drawing. I mean, yeah, let's take the free market-based approach where if you have the funds, you have the capital to start a dispensary, then you get to start a dispensary. Now, your local area may not want that, and that's one thing. I think that's ridiculous, but that's one thing. I do not want the state in general, the state of Missouri, having their friends handpick, even though it's supposed to be a lottery, handpicking their friends who get to open a dispensary, because I'm telling you right now, just like with every other government program, the disadvantaged and the poor communities are still going to suffer with this constitutional amendment, same as they are right now. Nothing is going to change in that whole scenario. We're going to see the medical marijuana monopoly spring up out of the ground, and as much as I know a lot of people throw that monopoly word around when we're talking about businesses, but this is going to be government picking winners and losers, and that's kind of monopolizing, in a certain industry, picking winners and losers. That's kind of a monopolizing type of thing. I do not want government in charge of who's going to get a dispensary or who's going to be able to have a cultivation site or whatever. If they have the money and they have the revenue and they're willing to, or the capital, and they're willing to spend it and try to, get us a product out there, let them do it. If they fail, they fail. But it didn't cost the taxpayers a dime. We don't have to hire a bunch of goons to sit here and watch over everything and sit there and draw names out of a hat or whatever weird nonsense they're doing. We don't have all this wasted taxpayer money. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me on all of it is don't put it in the Constitution. It's not the place for it. What we need a place where we can make change over time if it needs to happen. We need to make it to where we can, you know, if it's going great, that's great. If it's not, why isn't it? Let's look at it. That is a much better system than, oh, well, it's not going good, so let's go out and gather all these signatures and let's get the people in Missouri to vote on it and let's do all these other steps before we can fix it.
Yeah, because if you get people to sign, and if you get that many people to vote it into law, how many people do you think are going to turn around and vote against it? Like, or vote to change it, remove it from the Constitution, try again? That's going to be way harder than getting a law in and then amending the law as time goes on. It's going to be way harder. Catherine says, how about we just let people grow what they want and put what they want on their bodies so as long as they aren't hurting anyone? Well, Catherine, you must come from the land of Kookyville because only people who like freedom talk like that. That's gross. I mean, that's listen, folks. The world we're living in right now. That's how some people look at us. If we say, "Hey, why don't you just let people choose what they put in their body?" They look at you like, "What?" Like, yeah, if somebody wants to smoke a doob, just let them, If somebody wants to torch the devil's lettuce and put it into their lungs, you should let them. I really wish we could get out of this, get some people out of this mindset, what was that, Reefer Madness movie type crap. I wish we could get out of the States. There's some people literally, like, they watched Reefer Madness and they took it as a documentary. Like they think this really happens. Like somebody smokes some reefer and goes to the piano and plays like speed metal on the piano, dancing around like lunatics. I've been around a lot of people that were high. I've never ever seen that ever. Now somebody might, if they're really good instrumentally, they might go to the piano and play some Beethoven, but they're not playing like clink, 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 like banging on the keys and everybody dancing like speed dancing around the room. Never have I ever seen that. I'll tell you what I have seen. People like, this is funny, people like just destroying a gallon of ice cream, but I've never seen anybody play speed metal on piano after smoking the devil's lettuce. So I think it's, it's and then Ganai says, why does it always have to be a dispensary? I should be able to grow it for myself. See, that's the other thing. That's the other thing about this. Is that they're trying to they don't want people, especially if you don't have a license, where you can just grow it and nobody knows how much you're growing. That kills the monopoly they have on the dispensary side. If people can just grow it without a license, that just murders their business, and they don't want that. They want you dependent on going to a dispensary and buying from them because you don't want to. Oh, well, now I have to spend $100 and on a license, and I have to hang the license on my door, and I might get a random visit from some bureaucrat to check me out. Like, so they'll just go to a dispensary. That's one of the, and that I can't think, of who I wish I could remember the gal's name that I interviewed. But that was one of her main points, is that they're trying to make people dependent on the dispensaries. That's one of the worst things.
I remember the interview you're talking about, but yeah, we've gotten away from the idea, and so for a lot of people, it's a foreign idea that we should be free to grow what we want to grow, or just in general, do what we want to do with our lives. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine, dude. Yeah, it is rather annoying that we have to deal with this type of stupidity where I'm trying to look up this gal's name. So if I stutter, I've got her name somewhere, and I gotta look this up so I can because I really want to give credit where credit's due because it was such a good interview, and I really enjoyed our talk. So I'm trying to find her name. I have too much stuff on my page, and now it's just like ugh. Oh, Christine Thompson from Show Me Can of Freedom. That's who it was. Christine Thompson. And she's still posting stuff, and she's out there trying to fight the good fight, but, you know, yeah. So, I really wanted to touch on that because this Show Me, or this Legal Missouri 2022 is a joke. I want to break away for just a second. For those of you who didn't see my very first public speaking foray, this past Saturday, would have been the 6th, I went to Robert Smith's campaign event and did my first time speaking in front of a group of people for whom the most part I did not know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And
I think
it was terrifying. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Jesse Rude spoke before I did, and when Jesse was getting towards the end of his thing, I knew it was getting my turn, and my heart was pounding in my chest. I'm like, oh dear God, here we go. And I got up there, I did my spiel, I did okay. I think my voice just broke, like I'm getting all emotional about it. But anyway, I did my thing. I think I did okay. And I had people ask me later, how'd it go? I was like, well, I didn't puke or pass out. So to me, I got a passing grade. And I was happy with that. I wanted to bring that up. And then again, don't forget, August. Oh God, is it August 28th? Let me stop being so stupid. Catherine's in here. She could tell me the date. Yeah, August 28th from 2 to 4 at the Troy Fairgrounds. Catherine Dreyer is going to have a campaign event, and I will be speaking there. Also terrifying, but I'm going to change up my speech a little bit, Catherine, just to give you a heads up. I'm going to switch it up just a little bit, and bring up some other things that that have come to light in the last little bit. So I appreciate Robert inviting me for that and doing that. It was great to hear Jesse and Patrick and Tom Martz speak also. Also, just another heads up, Tom Martz sent me a message today about possibly doing a podcast with him on legislation as well that's coming into, that they're trying to put through the legislature, and then watching it and monitoring as it goes through and talking about that thing. He said that he's just throwing ideas around, asked me if I'd be interested. I'm hoping maybe we can get Patrick in on this too. I don't know if he talked to Patrick or not. Yeah, Ganai, that was Tom Martz, the guy that taught the Missouri Constitution. Very good. He is going to have his own podcast coming out pretty soon where he teaches. He already does classes on state constitutions in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and one other state. But he is going to start doing podcasts going through the entire state constitution. Tom's a pretty knowledgeable guy, so hoping to maybe hook up with him at some times as well and work with him. And this is what I talk about. This is what I kind of touched on in my speech was when you, and Casey, I know you can attest to this, when you start getting into this liberty thing, sometimes you think you're all by yourself, but you get out there and you talk about it, or you bring up topics, and suddenly you have this random chance meeting. You meet another person, and they have some kind of group, or they know a lot of people, and then suddenly you find yourself networking with them, and then it just kind of it's starting to explode. This podcast, working with Patrick, Sam and Trish taking me on and giving me the chance to be on their network, and radio stations and other networks taking me on, and now meeting Tom. I have to say, folks, between the listenership and some of these people out there in the freedom movement, this thing is starting to build some momentum, and it makes me very happy that I'm not just sitting behind a mic and wasting oxygen and having to go out and apologize to the trees afterwards. So I greatly appreciate that. But
yeah, it gets awesome. When I joined, it was amazing how many people just got on my face. I got on Facebook. It's a big movement if you're actually in it and get active in it.
It is. It's I again, I when I first started this up, I felt kind of on my own a little bit, and then I had people that would just show up every week and listen and comment, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And like I said, between Sam and Trish, and now Patrick, and now meeting Tom Martz, uh, and then meeting candidates like yourself and Robert and Catherine, and all these things, I feel like we're building some good momentum here. It feels pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I feel good about it. So
The biggest thing, community.
yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you something else, Casey, but then I forgot what the heck I was going to ask you about. Well, so let me ask you this, Casey: are you going to consider running again in the future?
I'm giving myself some time, but I won't. I won't say anything is out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
Probably not against Willard. Probably give it a little bit more time. Maybe just run locally. Because we need people who care about liberty at every level.
Well, and that's a
But
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, uh, definitely a possibility. Probably about 6 years away.
Okay, because I know when Tom Martz spoke, he said one of his biggest tips to the audience was if you're going to run, if you have plans on running for state rep, don't run for state rep first thing. Run for city councilman or alderman or whatever. Run for a position like that, and then because that gives you the experience you need to move up to the next level, to move up to state rep. But he said for most people, just running for state rep right away, probably not a good idea. Now, there are people who run the first time and win. So I'm not saying it can happen, but he was talking experience wise, getting your feet wet, running at your most basic local level, which would be, like I said, city alderman or mayor or something to that effect. That is going to be your best bet. That really teaches you the ins and outs. And then you can take that next step if you want to run for state rep, which, I was like, you know what? That's not bad advice. It's really not.
It's really not.
Because, I know some people do it because they're like, oh, man, I'd be a state rep. I can get all kinds of things. And that's the exact person you don't want running. We have a city alderman now, and I've been to 3 or 4 meetings, doesn't speak a peep. The only thing they ever asked was, do we get tax revenue from that? That is literally the only thing that person asked the whole time. And I was like, in 3 or 4 meetings, and I was like, is that really all you got to say? Is we get tax revenue from this? It's like, why are you here? Why are you in this position? It was really off putting to me. I was like, what is your deal? Like again, I heard literally not one word from this person in the other meetings I went to, except for, do we get tax revenue from that? Come on, just get off. You get off the. I really wanted to say, hey, you realize taxation is theft, right? And that would have went over like a lead balloon. But that was my thought. Hey, did you know that taxation is theft? And like, oh, what do you mean it's theft? Then you have to like explain yourself, and then everybody's like, oh, I don't know. I guess I didn't want to be the Debbie Downer at the meeting, even though it's
Let me tell
true.
you. Yeah, let me tell you. The single you're asking about campaign advice. The single biggest piece of advice I can give you: know your district and be active in it before you run.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, because you don't want to go somewhere and start talking to people, and they're like, "Do you even know what town you're in?" You're like, what county are we in?
Actually, I take that back. The other one, care.
What's
Sounds
that?
weird. The other one is actually care. be legitimate about it. Like you said, you have a lot of people who, well, what can I get out of this? I think the biggest thing that anyone can do for themselves, the worst thing, is not care about the people that they're running to represent, um, and not understand what struggles they're going through, and not want to make a better life for Missouri. And that, to me, means a more free life. But in general, caring about your area, being active in your area, I think that's one of probably the best things you can do.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife and I were talking on the way home because I'd forgot to mention to her about this whole somebody sponsoring one of my episodes, and I said, here's the thing: if I wanted to lie to myself, um, I could get on here, completely change the format of my show, and just come on as saying I'm a Republican, and just badmouth Democrats the whole freaking way every day. And I said, you know what? I guarantee you I'd get more listeners if I did that. But I said, that's not me. I would be lying to myself, and I would be lying to everybody else. Oh, I could probably get sponsors and all this other stuff. Or people would just climb on board because here's John bashing Democrats. Because we both have family members. Some are diehard Democrats, and some are diehard Republicans. And they'll ask me, oh, I hear you got a podcast. And I said, guarantee you they don't listen long because they're so tied up in this duopoly that I beat up on both sides, and they immediately lose interest. It doesn't matter how truthful I'm being. They're not going to listen. They can't stand it because I'm beating up on their guy because their guy said this. And I go, well, he's a hypocrite because he also did this too. And they can't stand the fact that you're beating up on both parties. So I said it narrows my audience. And I'm fine with that because I'm not out here spouting a bunch of BS to people that I don't even believe in. So I'm fine with the fact that, yeah, I might have a more narrow audience. I might not reach tens of thousands of households. I don't care. Because if I do that, I'm literally wasting my time. I'm wasting their time. I'm not doing any of those people any good. Now, am I saying that Democrats don't deserve to be beat up on? Absolutely. That's not what I'm saying because a lot of times Democrats do dumb stuff and they deserve to be beat up on. But so do Republicans. And sometimes even a few libertarians do dumb stuff and you got to beat up on them too. I just don't prescribe to this party mentality. I'll be honest. It drives me absolutely batty to hear people just go, we just need Republicans to win. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to remember for me has been the order. It sounds, I don't know how to put it in a good way. The order in which I give my care, First, I'm a Pemberton. Then, I'm a Christian. Then, I'm a member. Then I'm a Clarksburgian. Then a Montauk, Cooper County, and depending on the area where I've lived, and then a Missourian, and then an American. You can break it down further for a lot of those even, but the point being, you gotta. People don't think about that. They just think about, well, I'm an American and I'm a Republican, and that's what matters.
Well, you bring up a good point because the first and most important thing is the sovereignty of the self, which is slowly being eroded away from us. You have to understand that you yourself are sovereign. You have to put yourself above the party, above even your community or your county and your state. You have to put yourself above all of that. Now, some people say, well, that's selfish. The same people that will tell you you're selfish for thinking that way are the people that operate purely, for the most part, on emotion. And emotion is self-driven. You're basing your decisions and everything on your emotions, which is still a sovereign type of thing. because they don't want you to be allowed to say certain things because you'll hurt their feelings. They're still basing that on the fact that they consider themselves more important than you, but it's the way they word it. That's offensive. That's racist. That's homophobic. Whatever. They're still basing it on themselves, their feelings, their emotions. It's just that people that want freedom, people that want liberty, they don't base these things, their arguments, on emotion. They base it on reality and fact. And I think people need to come to that understanding that, hey, I understand that you might be offended by this. It doesn't mean that somebody else can't say it. Your sovereignty doesn't overtake my sovereignty. Your feelings
100%.
don't overtake my ability to speak certain words in a certain order in a paragraph that make you have a nuclear meltdown. That's not my problem. That's your problem. And before, hold on just 1 second, Casey, because I've got to clip this and we'll go on. So, to those of you in the KEYK audience, thank you so much for joining me once again for the Missouri to Liberty Report. Again, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. And please, if you come to YouTube, just hit subscribe. Let's grow the numbers, and then maybe we can grow this movement a little bit more and a little bit more all the time. We're blowing up. We're getting bigger. So thank you to you all, and we'll talk again next week. All right, Casey, go on with your comment. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just had to clip it there at the 56-minute mark.
Not a problem. But yeah, I just think an important thing for people to remember is part of that, all of those freedoms, is the freedom of association. And part of that means if I can choose not to associate on either end of that spectrum, because or because I don't like what you said, and you know, the power to.
Hey, Casey, you're breaking up really bad, bro. You're breaking up really bad.
Give me 1 second, and I should be able to get to a better spot.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Well, just to interject here while you're doing that, Ganai makes a good point. Let's be honest here. We haven't been free in a very, very long time, and that is true, especially after the Federal Reserve Act. Holy crap. Then the freedoms really started eroding. What's that?
Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, you're right. Whiskey Rebellion. But anyway, if you're in a better spot, you want to go on with your statement there?
Yeah. So basically, we need to have an understanding that we have the freedom to choose the freedom of association, and part of that includes the freedom to cut people out of our own lives and to not interact with them. And I think that's huge. And we need to remember that we have the ability to do that. And both sides need to remember that that is a part of the freedom of association.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a halfway intelligent person and you really, really cherish your freedom, or you want to be free, I mean, let's be honest. Do you really want to just side with a party and just do party-driven, legislation or what? Some of it might be good. I'm not saying that, but you're going to strictly base your life on what a party, a group of people tell you to do, the way you should feel, the way you should think, the things you should say. Do people really need to do that? Why do people feel the need to do that, to act that way? I think sometimes people just want to. They just have this misconception that they need to be. People just need to understand that. Look at me. I have emotions too. Yeah, we all have emotions. You don't have to be vindicated. You don't have to have people. You shouldn't want to force people to identify with you. If they do it freely of their own will, that's great because that means you found somebody else who thinks and feels the way you do. But they want to do it through force. They want you, in essence, to feel a certain way about a certain topic. Again, if people have never watched it, you need to watch a documentary. It's a long documentary, The Century of the Self. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was Sigmund Freud's nephew. Sigmund Freud's nephew took his writings and figured out if you attach a photo, a symbol, something to, some words, and you get an emotional response from someone every time they see that image, they remember certain words, and that's how advertising got so big. But it's also the way government and politicians do. They take certain phrases, they repeat them over and over and over again, and then they tie them to the other party or they tie them to a bad group of people. So when you say something, people just go, oh, you must like this guy. It's the same way if you get on these, CNN or Fox or whoever, they got four people screaming over each other, and one person says something, and another person calls them racist. All they're trying to do is get people to not listen to you anymore. What my friends call it a showstopper. Don't listen anymore. He's a racist. You got to stop listening to him. It's a showstopper. There's no fact to back it up. It's just that if you say the word now, there's a group of people who no longer will listen to a word you say, no matter how true it is and how much the other person's lying. They simply will not listen to you anymore because you've been labeled a racist by some idiot. And
Family Guy did a great job of commenting on that, at least the first part of that. At one point, when Lois is running for mayor, her campaign manager answer everything with 9/11. 9/11 was bad, and all of a sudden, you just get she understands. You get that. That's what you get with all these people who are nothing but talking points. 9/11 is bad. I don't like that. I don't like the bad things. But good things make me feel happy, so it's good.
But you know what's sad about that is it works. That's the sad point. It's not the sad point that they do it. The sad point is that it works. It works tremendously well. That is the problem. People cannot think enough. I shouldn't say people. There are a lot of people who can't think for themselves. And so when they hear keywords, it makes the hamster run on the wheel inside their head, and then they spout nonsense because they've lost the ability to think for themselves. Not only that, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's kind of something I hit on in my speech. I think that really every person is kind of born with this innate feeling that they want to be free. They want to make their decisions. They want to be a little rebellious, but for whatever reason, whether it's indoctrination in the government fool system or government itself or some talking head, they're almost taught to take that feeling and stomp it down. How dare you want to be free? How dare you want to make decisions for yourself? How dare you want to do any of these things? They just teach people that feeling is bad and to just stomp it down and not listen to that voice, the voice of nature, the saying that you want to be free. You should be able to make your own decisions. You should not have to do what others tell you to do. Don't harm anyone else. Those feelings are repressed. They're stomped down, and that is because our kids are so heavily indoctrinated now that the feeling of wanting to be free is repressed, but please have feigned outrage about something stupid that's meaningless in the end. You can have all the outrage and pity parties for that all you want. But if you want to be free and you want to have more liberty, you got to push that down. That's awful. But feel free to go out in the middle of the street and throw a temper tantrum because somebody got elected or somebody said a word you didn't like. That's perfectly
Or
okay.
Your favorite restaurant is now carrying vegan meat.
Yeah, that too. Get upset about because they don't have fake meat on the menu, or
They do. Get
yeah,
upset on both.
yeah, or they do. Yeah, that too. They didn't even know that
Both.
was restaurant's choice, and if you don't like it, don't go to that restaurant. You idiot. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing, what we're seeing now out of the feds with the IRS agents and all this other nonsense. I keep trying to hammer home to folks. You think you can fix the federal government? Look at what they're doing right now. They just came out and told you not too long ago, we're not in a recession. And we're going to pass a bill to spend a bunch of money to fight inflation when everything in there is not about fighting inflation. The Fed is broken. Get your state in order.
Agreed. Yeah, man. It's all nuts. And somehow we're going to fix that system. And, our local governments don't matter. And it's so hard to get people to realize, you don't want you want a pit bull. It was your local government that passed the ordinance that said you couldn't have a pit bull.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Fed. They're the ones who are interfering with your life on a day-to-day basis. As far as the Feds are concerned, you're probably a felon 3 times over every day, and they don't care 90% of the time.
Yeah, because it hasn't affected them yet. That's the problem. People want to be so reactive rather than proactive. And I say this, I'm overgeneralizing, but too many people want to be reactive instead of proactive. And we've been reactive for too long. And we're reactive when it's too late. We have to be more proactive. And now we have to be super proactive. We have to think ahead and try to pass legislation in the states that says the feds can't come in and do X, Y, and Z. And keep them out. I mean, it's come to this. It's come to this. But we have to stop being so reactive to everything. We have to be more proactive, which is what the founders intended for us to be anyway. Not to be reactive, but as soon as we see somebody coming for our liberty, we go, not so fast there, funny boy. And we're proactive enough that we guard that jewel of liberty. But now we're being reactive. And then the legislation gets through because you're not going to stop the feds from passing legislation. You can make all the phone calls you want. They're not going to vote it down. It's going to get through. And in the state level, we still have the ability right now. But if you sit around and wait like we did with the feds, we're going to end up the same way here in Missouri. You have to be proactive, and you have to get on the ball, and you have to make phone calls. You have to send emails. You have to send letters to your reps and give them a piece of your mind. Don't write them and email them, phone call them, cursing them out, but let them know where you stand. You get enough people to do that, and you're going to see some change. But to sit here and expect everybody else to do it for you and then get upset because things went through and you're just like, oh, these people suck. Well, it's not just them. Maybe you suck because you don't want to do anything about it. I mean, I hate to be that rude, but sometimes it's true. People sometimes suck, and they don't want to suck it up and make a phone call or write an email. Literally takes 2 minutes. It's not like you got to sit there and draw and write out your own version of some kind of novel and send it off. It takes 2 minutes to write an email, say, hey, I'd really like to see this bill go through, or hey, I really wish you'd vote no on this bill. It really doesn't take that much time, but I don't know, man. It's hard to,
It's hard to get people to be willing to be active.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, Casey, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on this evening?
Nope.
Well, anytime you want to come back on, you send me a message or whatever. And also, when we get closer to the legislative session and we're talking about certain bills, I'd like to have you come. I mean, I know you don't have insider information, but get on there because you you're in touch with, you have a feeling, what's not good, what's good, better ways to do things. So we get closer to legislative session. You have time, you want to come on, talk about some bills. You let me
I'll
know, and I
try
will
to.
set aside a day for you.
All right. I'll try to. I might also just try to point you in the direction of a couple of reps you might talk to.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Point me to anybody that's willing to come on and discuss things. And again, I appreciate you pointing me towards Eep, and I will get in contact with him and see if he'll come on and talk about Legal Missouri 22 and see if we can't dive deep in that one. Yeah, again, Ganai says Voodoo Queen is our email champion. Yes, she is. Well, Casey, thanks so much for joining me again. Anytime you want to come on, discuss more Liberty things, just let me know, and I'll set aside a date, and we'll have you back on, brother.
Sounds great, man, and thanks for having me on. Like I said, anyone who is thinking of running, hit those doors, and volunteers mean the world. Every volunteer you get is a door you didn't have to hit yourself.
Absolutely. All right, Casey. Well, you have a great weekend, man, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, talk to you later, man. Thanks for everything.
Yep. Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. All right, folks. That was Casey Pemberton. Unfortunately, he did not win in his primary, but I know that Casey, is willing to continue on the fight, and he's willing to educate others about, what's right and what's wrong for liberty here in the state of Missouri. So, again, I'm going to try to have Ethan Thampy on with me here very soon. I'm also going to try to pencil in Tom Martz for an interview on his Lock and Smith Foundation, which is, he educates 4 different states on their constitutions. To have him on and talk about some of the things that he's doing and is going to do. And, again, might be working with him and waiting on that word. I told him that, I was intrigued by that. And, whatever we can do to spread the message of freedom and liberty helps me learn more about the Constitution of Missouri as well. And we'll, and that way we can educate you all. And so you know what is unconstitutional and constitutional in your state. And again, thanks to all the live viewers. Thanks for Catherine, especially for jumping in. Really appreciate that. Again, August 28th in Troy, Missouri, from 2 to 4 at the Troy Fairgrounds. Myself, Tom Martz will be speaking, and Paul Kurtman, who is a former state rep, who tried to pass a sound money bill like 10 years ago, I believe. He put something forward for sound money in the state of Missouri. He will be the keynote speaker. But yeah, 2 hours, going to have a 50-50 drawing. I think she's got some porcupine keychains for $2 a piece. So if you want to come out and support Catherine Dreyer, again, she's running District 10 for state senate, libertarian candidate. Maybe it'd be great to see some of the listeners there if you're around that area. Because Catherine, again, could use all the support that we can give her. Probably going to have her back on at some point to discuss her campaign, maybe some other hot topics in the state of Missouri, or just things that she wants to talk about. So try to have Catherine back on. More than likely have Robert back on at some point to discuss his campaign and the Missouri, the sound money bill that he will sponsor if he's elected to the state house. Might have to get Patrick Holland back on, too, to discuss sound money here in the state of Missouri as well, and discuss the work that we're going to need to do this coming legislative session. But again, thanks to all of you who download, watch the live stream, listen via radio. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next Friday. All right, thanks to everybody in the live stream. Really appreciate you guys tuning in again and spending your Friday evening with me. So yeah, I'm gonna try see if I can get Epen on next Friday to talk about Legal Missouri 2022 and the pitfalls in that ballot initiative, and then it's going to be our job to educate everyone else. Good night, Patrick. Good night, Voodoo Queen, BH, Catherine, Grant was here. Grant made it right just about in time. He told me he's going to try to make it, and he did. Jonathan Ashley, thanks to all who joined in tonight. Really appreciate you guys. And we'll see you all next Friday. Oh, Patrick, if you're still in here, I may try to call you this weekend if you're available. I was going to talk to you about something. And I can't remember what it was now, but I'm sure my wife will remind me because she told me, oh, you should talk to Patrick about that. So I may send you a text message or something and try to, before I call you, see if you're available or busy or what have you. But anyway, to the rest of you all, good evening. Good weekend. Have a good weekend. Be safe. And let's go out and continue our fight for freedom, folks. So take care.